Okay, we're live. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. So, today we're continuing our series of reviews of every Star Trek film. We're going to do every Star Trek film. We're going to review all of them. Um, so, today we're at episode 2, Wrath of Khan. Wrath of Khan. Okay. So, so this film came out in 1982. So a couple things happened, I guess, in between the first and second film, and I feel like we kind of talked about this maybe off air during the last one, but basically the studio kind of like blamed Gene Roddenberry, right, for the first movies not being super successful.
It would not surprise me. He was not a
Yeah.
very easy person to work with,
Okay.
especially when it came to the Star Trek property. He was not very easy. He
Yeah.
was a man with a vision.
Yeah.
A very, very, very strict vision.
Yeah. So I guess he pissed off the wrong people or whatever, and they like kind of kicked them out. I was reading too, like he wanted to have, basically his story idea was like the Klingons go back in time and stop JFK from being assassinated.
There was a JFK plot point that he wanted to include very badly. I understand, from what I understand, and I think a lot of people are just like, still kind of too soon, and no. Also, no.
Yeah, because they would be going back in time to make sure he died. As far as my understanding is what the
Which sounds even worse, honestly. It sounds even worse. Like, why would the Klingons want to stop JFK? Why would the Klingons want to help assassinate JFK? Like, the Klingons can already be kind of petty and extreme as it is. I just feel like that, like, the Klingons would not give a shit about JFK. They would not care about that pink skin at all.
Yeah. I feel like the idea, the seed of it, is what you would turn into like First Contact, basically. Because it's kind of, it's like, okay, they're gonna come back in time to stop us from joining Starfleet, right? Like I'm guessing that's the purpose.
I mean, if they were gonna stop, the First Contact didn't happen until like way later. They would just be accelerating First Contact, but they would also be going back to the 60s, which is when, you know, the heyday of Star Trek, or not the heyday, but when the beginning of Star Trek would have taken place. So I can kind of see some poeticism there, but I just leave JFK alone. just leave it alone. We just need to let it rest in peace at this point.
Yeah, exactly. So Wrath of Khan is like a very, very well regarded film in the series. Unfortunately, that first film not as well loved.
I mean, like I was saying last time, the motion picture has its place. It is very good science fiction, but it did not translate well to like an actual film. And there was too many gaps. There was just too many gaps in between everything that was going on. Because I like the science fiction side of it. I loved it. I think it's so very, very, like I said, Isaac Asimov gave the ending to the motion picture his blessing, and I'm just like, that is awesome. But it's just not exciting. It's not an exciting movie, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not. But this movie, a little bit more exciting, I guess you could say. So yeah, I mean, someone over there figured out what the right formula is to get us a good Star Trek movie. It is possible. It is possible to get something that's exciting, but also Star Trek. Okay, cool. So let's talk about this movie. Talk about what happens in the plot. So movie opens up, and we get the fun music, and then it says in the 23rd century, and then we see the Enterprise, and it's not Kirk that's the captain. It's Saavik, right? Is that how you say her name? Kirstie Alley. Saavik, yeah, and she's
it is Kirstie Alley, ironically.
Yes, and she's a Vulcan, and it's like, okay, this is really kind of cool. This is interesting, very interesting casting, and not what I expected, and but everyone else is there, right? Uhura, Spock, Sulu and McCoy. It's like, okay, this is cool. They're all on the bridge, and then so there's a civilian vessel, the Kobayashi Maru has been disabled in the neutral zone. Interesting. Okay. And it's rapidly losing. Yeah. And it's rapidly losing power, and its whole integrity and life support are, fading. So it's like, what are we gonna do? And Savik decides, okay, we're gonna go into the neutral zone, and we're going to try and save everyone who's on the ship. So they do that, and they immediately get attacked by Klingon warships. And then the warships like immediately fire on them, and we see one by one Spock, Uhura, Sulu, and McCoy are just like killed in explosions. It's like, oh, what the hell's going on? But it's all just a simulation. It's a test. Mm-hmm. And this is the
Kobayashi Maru test.
This is the famous Kobayashi Maru test. The no-win scenario. And it's testing what you're going to do when you're in a no-win scenario. So this is like Star Trek, like peak Star Trek, basically, right? This is like one of the most known things in Star Trek. I mean, I think there are people who probably know this idea without ever having seen Star Trek.
Yes, it was. One of the things I find funny about the Kobayashi Maru test that I've always found funny, and this actually was brought up recently on the newest season of Star Trek Discovery, is that everyone kind of acts like the twist at the end of the Kobayashi Maru test is always a surprise. But that would be the worst kept secret in Starfleet. Everybody knows that it is going to happen, but everyone's always surprised that they lose, which might be just part of the human hubris or whatever, that I'll be the one to defeat the Kobayashi Maru test. But yeah, because Savik is like, what the fuck?
Yeah. She's like,
I'm like, girl, you knew this was going to happen. You had to have known.
She's super mad about it, which is very kind of
as mad as a Vulcan can be.
Yeah, it's illogical or whatever. Why would there be a test that I can't win? That's illogical. That sounds like a very, but Spock created this test, right?
Not in this universe.
Not in this. Okay. No. I'm sorry. The JJ.
That shit. No. It's totally fine. That was purely made up for the JJ Abrams universe for some dumb reason I don't understand.
The JJ shit is like in my brain.
No, that's totally fine. It's a lot of people still assume that Spock created it, but in the Prime universe, that's never brought up or anything like that. I think as far as like the 2009 film goes, that was just to have them begin at a hard place and eventually have to work together. It was purely for storytelling. Yeah. And I don't necessarily hate it, but it was still stupid to me.
Yeah. Because I mean, it doesn't really matter who created it.
No, you just assume, oh, this has been around since Kirk was in the academy, so it must just be a really old standard test that works really well. They probably tweak it over the years, but
I was thinking that
very violent test.
Yes. Mm-hmm. That they should, like, the way that I would expect that they would do it is that over time they would change this. The scenario is always basically the same. It's always like, will you do this thing? Okay, someone's dying, but it's going to right. So the test is basically, are you going to save these people, or are you not going to save them because it's too dangerous? And I was even reading like there's also, it's never really shown the other side of the equation. But from what I read, some people have postulated. So it's like, what happens if the captain says that we're not going to save them, and people were saying like, basically there would be a mutiny on the ship, and then
that could lead to a mutiny.
The captain would have to deal with the mutiny. And so it's always about how the captain deals with the bad scenario, because that's the whole point of this test is like, something bad is going to happen either way, but you have to be prepared for it. And it's just a question of what you're going to do.
Yeah, I would like to see a scenario where they to try and contact any kind of Klingon warships that are in the vicinity, possibly. See how that scenario would play out. Still, you're going to lose either way, but it'd be cool to see like the different scenarios instead of just like going in and being like, oh, we're going to rescue them. It's going to be a rescue mission. It'd be cool to see different scenarios, which is why I think it'd be fun for them to do like an actual like not just because of the Kobayashi Maru. But I think they're planning on, they might be doing a Starfleet Academy show, which I think would be interesting. Because then maybe you'll be able to see some of these other scenarios play out. Because it's going to be a different choice for almost anyone. Because if you choose to just let them die, you're a pretty shitty captain, and that's not what Starfleet is about. Like there could be a situation where you call for backup. You know, there could be a situation where you just fly away. You still lose the test. You still lose because you didn't even try.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. There's a lot of different things that can happen, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, which is why the test is so great, because there's potentially an infinite amount of outcomes. I mean, they all end the same, but an infinite amount of choice.
They all end either in a mutiny or you get attacked, and you just have to, you have to be prepared for that moment of death, right?
Yeah, every Starfleet captain has to face that moment at some point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Saavik is like hella mad, and she's like, "This wasn't a fair test of my command abilities because there was no way to win." And Kirk is like, "Well, a no-win scenario is a possibility every captain will face. So how we deal with death is as important as how we deal with life." And so, but I think it's kind of also implied here that, like, Kirk did pass the test. And so, but we don't know how he did yet. And so it's just like kind of floated out there. So that's something we're going to find out later in the film. So, and another thing, so at this point, so Kirk is still Admiral. So who is Spock captain of the Enterprise at this point?
Yes.
He is, okay. All right. Cool. And so he's like training his Vulcan apprentice, I guess, as it will.
Yeah, he's training. I'm assuming he's training a number of different candidates at the moment, or at least preparing to. I'm assuming Saavik. I don't know if it's ever actually clearly stated, and I've watched this movie a lot. If Saavik's in training to be a commanding officer, so his number one, or if she has already been promoted, because she's taken the test. I feel like she hasn't gotten the official promotion yet, but it's basically like a for sure thing. Spock is captain of the Enterprise, and Kirk. Kirk is basically just overseeing the progress, basically.
Yeah. And so it's also Kirk's birthday.
Aww.
So happy birthday to Kirk. But he's getting kind of old, and he's still behind that desk, and it's kind of, the desk seems to be aging him even faster. So Spock gives Kirk a Tale of Two Cities, which is kind of cute. I really like Kirk's quarters.
Yes.
Because this is a real naval guy. He's got all these like old, 19th century boat kind of things, and all these.
He's got like a wall of muskets too, which I love the wall of muskets. It's so cool.
Yeah, that's a very cool detail. So he's obsessed with naval history. I guess that's what he'd been doing in his time off while he was behind a desk, collecting muskets and other recreations of Navy ships.
He's got a lot of memorabilia.
Yeah, he's got a lot of memorabilia. And so then McCoy comes and they have a little chat, and he gives him a pair of glasses. He's like, "Yeah, you're an old guy now." Blah blah blah. And basically, he's like, "Man, you're this job's really aging you fast. You gotta get back into it. You have to like go back to being a captain." And it seems like that's where he's gonna be headed eventually. Kirk, back to being the thing that I guess he was supposed to do. Like, there's a lot of that.
I mean, right? There is. I think McCoy is just very like attuned to the fact that Kirk is just visibly unhappy with what he's doing. Yeah. And if you're not happy with what you're doing now, then you should go back to doing what you made you happy, before, which was being on a starship, and not just earthbound, because that's not what makes him happy at all. It's always been the adventure that fulfilled Kirk the most. It's why he never had a family. It's why he never did. It's why he never just put roots down in one place. It's because it was always the next adventure that fulfilled him the most.
Yeah, he likes being on that starship, doing his thing. Yeah. All right, and so then we see Terrell and Chekhov. They're heading towards this. I I guess it's like Project Genesis, or they're in some kind of like a vessel, the Project Genesis science crew, and they're in the Reliant, and so is Chekhov the commander of this ship, or is it Terrell?
Terrell is definitely the commanding officer.
Terrell.
Chekhov is has always see in the movies he seems to be more. He was kind of a helmsman in the original show, and then in the later movies, kind of more security and tactical. But he's with Terrell, aiding them in this. This is probably just his new assignment for the time being.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're like checking out this planet. It's a dead planet, or is it? And so they find some signs of life on this planet, and so they're like, oh hey, Carol Marcus, we found some potentially some life signs on this planet, which would delay their doing this experiment that they have. And so she's like, oh, you guys better check it out, because otherwise I can't do this next phase of this project, science project. They're like, okay, we'll figure out what's going on. So Terrell and Chekhov beam down, and they're like trying to figure out what's going on. They find this like down ship or something, and they go inside, and there's like these cargo carriers, and they're like, what the hell is this? And then Chekhov finds this. It's called the SS Botany Bay.
Yes.
Now Chekhov recognizes it once he sees it as a Botany Bay. He's like, oh, Botany Bay. Oh shit, we gotta go.
Not good. And yeah, it's not good. But the most hilarious part of this is that Chekhov was not in the episode that had this character. You could make the argument that he did his research and he read up on, this person. But the funniest thing is that he wasn't there at all.
that is funny.
Which is actually something in Into Darkness they also portray, is that Khan and Chekhov share absolutely no screen time with each other.
Oh, okay. That's kind of funny. Yeah, so they try to get the hell out of there, but it's too late. And they get captured by this group of people. I really like the way that they depict them, like when they're in their whatever they're wearing, when they're just like out there in the wilderness. It's like very cool. And then they're captured by Khan Noonien Singh, and his crew of other, genetically engineered superhumans from the 1990s. In our 1990s, we were watching Titanic. In their 1990s, they were taking over the world.
There was a eugenics war going on.
There was a eugenics war. Not the 90s that we're familiar with, but hey. Yeah, and so they were marooned on this planet 15 years ago by Mr. Kirk. And so basically this is a kind of interesting scenario. So Chekhov and Terrell went to this planet that they thought was like Ceti Alpha 5. They thought it was Ceti Alpha 6, but Ceti Alpha 6 exploded or something.
Yeah.
Like it blew up. It just blew up. And so they're actually on Ceti Alpha 5 where Khan was marooned, and then the explosion made the planet killed the planet. So it wasn't like they were marooned on a nice little place. It went to hell like immediately.
I think he said like a few months after they got there, the Ceti Alpha 6 exploded and completely altered the planet that they were on, Ceti Alpha 5. And he is extraordinarily pissed because he's like, yeah, nobody ever came to check on us. So that really sucked.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
You did some bad shit, Khan, so.
Yeah. Khan is not a good. So what exactly happened in the, so Khan is part of the original series TV show. There's like an episode where
the episode is called, there's the episode called Space Seed. He is basically found, him and his crew are found. Khan is awoken, and he seems very, cordial at first, very polite, but he is like a tiger stalking its prey, and he is literally, the way Ricardo Montalban played him from the episode he was in to the show, you see a drastic shift, but that predatory behavior in his eyes is just so freaking good. So yeah, he tried taking over the ship. Kirk was pissed about it and was like, yeah, get the fuck off my ship. Then he left them on this planet because he's like, we can't really risk sending them to a regular penal colony because Starfleet prisons are pretty cushy from what we've seen of them. Unless you're in a dilithium mine or some shit like that. But you have to do something really bad. So Kirk was basically like, I'm just going to take the law into my own hands as per usual. And here's a nice cushy planet. Do your thing, because even though you are genetically engineered people and are technically criminals, you have a right to live, essentially, from what I remember about it. And Khan actually was able to seduce a member of Kirk's crew into coming with him, and she was all about that shit. She saw Khan, and she was like, yep, end all be all right there.
Yeah.
And she went with him.
Cool. Yeah, he's a very he's a very charismatic character in this universe.
Hell yeah, he was. Especially in space. It's just like, damn.
Yeah.
I'll go with you. Sure.
Yeah.
Why not? It's like, move over, Benedict Cumberbatch. This is the OG, okay?
Yeah.
There is nothing charming about Benedict Cumberbatch's Khan. Absolutely nothing. No. There is nothing charming about him. Ricardo Montalban has a swagger to his Khan that is just like, yeah, I'll hear him out. Why not? I'll just hear him out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know. It kind of sucks that they never had an actual guy from a South Asian guy play this character in any iteration.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate.
It's unfortunate. I mean, but I don't know, I really like the Benedict Cumberbatch casting. I mean, he's a great actor. It's a strong role, and I think he does well with it. But the fact that you then make him a white dude, it's just how the fuck is a dude named Khan Noonien Singh a white dude from freaking Britain? I don't know how the hell that could happen.
Yeah, I don't know how that happens. I mean, many things are possible. But what I just keep him John Harrison. Have him be a pissed off Starfleet operative who's just angry at Starfleet. You could have just let him be John Harrison. That's all he had to be. But they just were like, oh, we can make it better, which no, you didn't.
Yeah.
The director of Wrath of Khan even said it didn't feel like a love letter. It just felt like a makeover. I'm paraphrasing. But
everyone knew that was Khan. Immediately, everyone knew it was Khan.
They had originally cast Benicio del Toro in a mysterious role in Star Trek. And based solely on Star Trek's history of not always casting ethnic appropriate actors, they were just like, oh, it's got to be Khan. It has to be. And then for whatever reason, Benicio del Toro wasn't going to be in it, and they cast Benedict Cumberbatch instead. And that's when everyone was like, oh, so they're not going to be doing that. It is going to be a different character. And it wasn't.
It was not. Yeah. Again, it's going to be very exciting to talk about those movies because there's going to be a lot to talk about. There will be a lot to talk about. We talked about something off air that kind of blew my mind because I had seen both of these movies, but I hadn't connected the dots. And when the dots got connected, I was like, oh no. Oh no, JJ, no, don't do that.
Oh, he did.
He totally did it too. That's going to be really fun to talk about. So yeah, Khan is on this planet Maroon, and he's not very happy. So they then this is another Star Trek thing, is what's up with these species of bugs and other stuff that gets into human beings? It's some nasty stuff.
I mean, hey, we got some scary, nasty bugs on our own planet. I can imagine that on other planets, the bugs are just as scarier and grosser.
This was a really cool, whatever they did to make this bug, the big bug, not the small baby bug. was pretty well done, I'd say.
It's so gross, and it's just you're having something invade your body that's going to control you or make you susceptible to suggestion. It's just it's body horror. It's really horrific.
It's some real David Cronenberg kind of shit. It's really bad. It's really bad. So yeah, they implant these eel larvae into their ears to control them. It's like, holy shit. So meanwhile, Kirk is going to tag along the Enterprise on a training cruise, and so it's full of cadets, and they're off on this nice little mission. So this is like him kind of getting back into the saddle, kind of starting. It's funny because you were talking about like basically people act as if the first movie never happened in a way, and we're literally kind of doing the same plot stuff as like that other movie. He does get back into it very quickly in the first one because like it's starting like, yeah, I'm an admiral, but I'm not happy. And I talked off screen to this person, and this person let me take over the Enterprise again, right? And so that's like,
then he just kicks Decker out of the chair. At least in this, he's not immediately captain. He's just, I'm just an observer. I'm just checking it out. I just want to come along for the ride. He probably doesn't actually have to be there. Spock is a very capable officer. Doesn't need someone looking over his shoulder, but I think he's also just happy to have his friend there too. And there's always something for a Starfleet captain to learn. But yeah, they're literally retracing the same plot points that the first movie had, but they're just kind of doing it so much better.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. And so yeah, he's on the ship.
It's also a funny movie. There's also some really good humorous parts in this movie too. Sorry.
Yes. They learned a lot of lessons from that first movie. Let's put it that way.
Laughter is good.
And there's a lot of great shots of the Enterprise again in this movie, but they don't take like 5 minutes.
Yes,
we see it in space.
Robert Wise, but we didn't take 5 minutes.
Yeah, we see it in space. We see it then, exit the dock. I mean, it's so funny. It's like all the same stuff, but it's just, done way
but everything's cut down. Everything is literally trimmed down so much.
Totally.
Like, they're on the shuttle to get to the Enterprise, and of course, after just watching motion picture, you're like, oh god. And then they have like 2 pieces of dialogue. They have one shot of the Enterprise, and then they're on board.
Yeah, they're on board,
like,
and
wow.
Saavik is like the one to take them out of dock. There's a first time from everything, is what Spock says, something like that. So it's kind of nice. Yeah, so that's cool. But meanwhile, Chekhov is like telling Carol Marcus, "Oh, hey, me and the crew, we need to like come aboard and do this thing." And they're like, "Wait, what? You're not supposed to be here for like 3 months." It's like, "Oh, well, we have to do it. It's an emergency." And
we're confiscating all of your data on Genesis, which is what they were afraid of.
Yeah. And they're like, "No, well, like this is outrageous. You can't do this. Who's under whose authority? Under the command of James T. Kirk." And yeah, they're hella pissed. Because they, like you're saying, basically they were afraid that they were gonna their scientific technology. God, I can't get Into Darkness out of my mind anymore. They're like, we're afraid that our scientific technology is going to be used as a weapon. We don't want that to happen.
Yeah, we literally don't, because even though like Starfleet and the Federation are very broad and there's tons of members in the Federation at this point, there are still independent scientific operations that are going on outside of Starfleet, which is really, really cool. The only downside is that Starfleet throws their weight around a lot and is constantly, they even do this in the first season of Discovery, where they confiscate they confiscate a piece of technology that is supposed to be used in the complete opposite direction of being used as a weapon or something of defense, and Starfleet bastardizes it personally. And so yeah, like you still have a lot of scientists in the Star Trek universe who don't fully trust the fact that Starfleet has the best intentions, and that's where a lot of the tension for Carol, and especially her son David, like really, really comes from. Is that no, we don't. They're just going to use it for something terrible, and that's not the point of it.
Yeah,
It's called Genesis, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, cool. Yeah. I mean, and that's something that's true to this day, right?
Very much
so. There's going to be a movie about basically the Manhattan Project, but it's going to be based around Oppenheimer, the next Nolan movie. And that was reading about that was very interesting too, because I remember there was this thing where there was one of the scientists was really into like code breaking and kind of unlocking like any kind of locking mechanism or something, or any code. He was really into breaking it. And so then he did something where he like would basically find the security flaw in every kind of thing, anything that was there. He would be like, oh hey, this, just to let you know, like, so this thing, I was able to access it this way, and I just felt like I should tell you that, just that's what I do. And so maybe you want to try and make it more secure, basically. And the military's response was, don't trust this guy. This guy's really weird, and he's gonna try and like break into your stuff. So like, there's definitely and again, like the whole Manhattan Project, there were certain points where they were like, this is kind of a bad idea because we don't know what's going to happen, and we could blow up the whole planet. It's a possibility we could just blow up the whole planet. And they're like, well, we don't care. This is really important to us, so we're going to do it anyway. There's a real kind of conflict between military and science, but there's a strong like corollary between the two as well. And so it's this weird relationship. It's one of the weird relationships in science that the two end up being married a lot.
And it's always like a toxic marriage too. It's always just like such a toxic marriage. And not that there aren't or haven't been really horrific mad scientists out there. But I like to think that a lot of times these scientists are trying to do things for the betterment of humanity, and they're just twisted in the worst possible ways. And then, wow, we have a tremendous loss of life. Sorry. That's literally going to affect generations afterwards with post-traumatic stress or medical conditions, or the fear that, what, are they going to do it again?
Or like, there's the other side of it too, where you get these scientists who are on board with the regime, and then you get some really bad shit. That's where you get the Nazi scientists, what they did, the experiments they did. The same with the Japanese scientists during World War II. They just found
Nazi scientists.
Any person they could, and they did all kinds of horrible shit to them. They threw them in deprivation tanks. They put them in basically what was the equivalent of being in space. Put them in a vacuum. See what would happen. Let's see what happens. Science. It's like,
or like all of the Mengele twins. All of that stuff that went on. He was just experimenting on twins, like in really horrific ways, and just. I watched a documentary once about one of the a child survivor of the Holocaust who was one of Mengele's twins, and it's so abundantly tragic. It's just and they just excuse it as like, oh, it's for the betterment of humanity. No, it's not. You're a sick fuck. That's all you are.
You're
just a sick fuck.
Yeah, you're
that's all you are.
Sicko. Yeah, and I mean that's using science to do truly evil shit. And so they're trying. Carol Marcus is trying not to do that.
Yes, she's actually a genuine person who wants to do something for the betterment of not just humanity, but hopefully for other worlds as well.
Yeah, this iteration of her.
This version of her.
So then she does this like emergency signal to the Enterprise, and she's trying to talk to Kirk, and she's like, "What's going on? Like, why are you having them take my equipment and blah blah blah?" But the signal is like broken up, like they can't.
They're probably jamming it.
Yeah, it's being jammed or something. And Kirk is like, what's going on, Carol? Why are you calling me? And they do this really cool thing where like he's talking with Bones, and he's like, they make it very apparent that they have a past, Kirk and Carol, but it's not really explicitly talked about at first. And he's like, doctor, it's a bad idea to open old wounds.
But but because of his rank, Kirk is also very aware of her research, so they probably have had off and on contact professionally. Because, I mean, she calls him because he's the one who supposedly is taking her research, but he's her friend in the Federation, really. I mean, he's her ear, if she needs something. And if he knows this much about Genesis, then there's got to be some kind of professionalism there. But yeah, he doesn't really. Just the old wounds is like, don't bring it up. You know how many girlfriends I've had, but this one was very special. In my top 5, she was the most special.
Yeah. It was her, and then it was the what were we talking about last week? The women that are like the pirate women.
Oh, the Orion.
Orion.
In 2009, yeah, he was into the Orion women. I don't know if Kirk ever went down with an actual Orion in the Prime universe. Would not surprise me at all. Kirk is a kinky shit. Okay, he's kinky. He's down for whatever. Yeah. He don't mind.
Yeah. Just had to.
Honestly, that's what makes him so awesome. Is that he's literally just like, yeah, I'll try it once. Who cares?
Yeah. Exactly.
He's very open-minded.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So then Kirk and Spock have a little chat, and Spock, like, is he always meditating? Like, what?
Vulcans actually are pretty much always meditating. Yeah. They're generally always at least I've always gotten the impression that Vulcans, if they don't believe in downtime, if there's any time where they're not physically working on something, they will be in a constant state of meditation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So he comes to Spock's quarters and he's meditating in like prayer or something like this. And then he's like, hey dude, something's going wrong. I'm going to have to assume command, and we're the only people who can help this Project Genesis. So, is that cool? And Spock's like, oh, well, I don't have any, I don't have any ego in this. Like, I'm totally cool with it, and I'm your friend.
Yeah.
But
he's like, you're not going to hurt my feelings. you know that. You have to know that at this point.
Yeah, but logic dictates that the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Mm-hmm. And so that's something to chew on for this story. Maybe that'll come up again later. Mm-hmm. Cool. So then I think, I don't know if it was here or later, they want to figure out what the hell Genesis is. And so they have to do this. It's like Kirk, McCoy, and Spock. They like, basically Kirk has access to like all the files because he's so high ranking. And so then they have this thing where they like scan his eye, and then they get this briefing from Carol Marcus about what Genesis is. And it is a technology that will create life from lifelessness. And so it reorganizes matter to generate life out of it. And basically the idea, they were doing different phases. Like phase 1 was like a small kind of thing. Phase 2 was a little bit bigger. Phase 3 would like transform an entire planet and make it, livable, basically. And that's where they're at with the technology. They now have that level of sophistication. But the problem with it is like if it went off, so like let's say it went off on Earth, it would just kill everything on Earth. But it would just be like, it'd be like the Garden of Eden or something. There'd be a lot of life, but anything could come out of the stew. Mm-hmm. Oh, there's a term for that. I forget what it is, but there's like
primordial ooze.
Yeah, something like that. Mm-hmm, exactly. It would be in the primordial ooze state. So yeah, it's kind of like a blank slate. And so they're kind of worried, like, oh, this could be destructive as well as bring life. And like Spock's very Spock about it. He's like, it's easier to destroy than it is to create. And so that was very interesting. And like, McCoy's like, damn it, man, you're so, you're so cold about it, blah blah blah, and again,
so that common McCoy Spock tension.
Yeah,
McCoy is a very quick to defense, but very human, very, very. He's a doctor, for fuck's sake. He's gonna think about everybody. He's not just gonna think about one person. He's gonna think about the whole of how it affects everyone. But he's very passionate about it, very emotional, if you
will. Just as an aside, so later we're gonna see McCoy having to be a doctor for some people. So what is that device that he uses to scan people? Does that just tell them what's wrong with them? Is that what that's for?
Like his handheld device or something he uses in the med bay? It's a tricorder. Yeah. So the tricorder, basically you scan someone with it and it'll give you their bio signs and stuff like that, and basically pinpoint what's wrong with them.
Okay. Yeah, I was curious what exactly that thing does. But yeah, that would be very useful actually. Right.
Oh yeah, tricorders would be great. It's basically just a map of your body, and it'd be like, if it's blinking red, that's what's wrong.
Yeah. All right. And so, Khan's plan is coming together. He wants the Enterprise to come because he's in the Reliant, and they don't know that, he's taken it over, and he's going to basically destroy the Enterprise and take him out in a sort of sneak attack. And he's like, oh, do you remember the old Klingon proverb? Revenge is a dish best served cold.
It's very cold in space. Okay.
It's very good. Yes.
Fucking love Ricardo Montalban. Yeah. I love that man so much.
And so he's coming, the Reliant is coming at the Enterprise. So is the Reliant a newer ship than the Enterprise at this point?
It could be. It might be. The name has been reused quite a few times. Even Captain Picard was on a ship called the Reliant at one point, so it's kind of hard to. It could be a newer ship with the same old name, kind of like what they do with Enterprise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they kind of we get in the situation of who's the superior, what's the superior ship. Later on in this film, a little bit in a way, just because there's some tactical stuff that needs to go on.
I think the Reliant's probably more maneuverable because it's smaller, but it's not as it probably doesn't have the same amount of firepower as the Enterprise. But a ship like Reliant could still do some heavy damage if it wanted to, if it could outmaneuver the Enterprise and get them right where it hurts. Because there's even a smaller ship in DS9 called the Defiant. Which is a very small ship by comparison, but it is a very badass little ship. It's a tough little ship.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. So the Enterprise is kind of trying to hail the Reliant, but they're not talking to them, but they don't know why. They don't know what the hell's going on. And then at the very last second, the Reliant fires on them, and so then we get a little firefight. Yeah. A whole bunch of bad stuff happens. They're very strategic in where they fire on the Enterprise. They disable it, so it can't really, I think they the warp drive or whatever, that room gets blown up.
Engineering, yeah.
Yeah, engineering gets messed up, so they're in deep trouble. And then it's revealed who it is. They finally get him on the line, and it's Khan. Yeah, he's like, hey buddy, you remember me? Remember where you left me?
It sucked.
It sucked, and then a planet blew up, and then it got even worse.
Also, you never came to check on us.
Yeah, Kirk. Oh, Admiral Kirk. Nice to, yeah. He's because that's another thing.
I love how that just, it kind of blows Khan's mind for a minute. He's like, Admiral? Oh, that son of a bitch.
Yeah. It's even worse. Yeah, and so Khan, Kirk does a good thing, oh, spare my crew and you can, kill me or whatever the hell you want to do, you psycho. He's like, no, well, I don't want one thing. I want information on Project Genesis. And Kirk's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, oh, what do you mean? Genesis? I've never heard of it.
Never
heard. Yeah. Never met. Yeah, that's exactly what Kirk would say.
Do you mean Jenny Sis? I know her.
Yeah, Jenny. I don't know any Jennys. And he's like, no, Kirk. You know every girl in this galaxy, so you gotta give me. You gotta kiss and tell. And so Kirk's like, okay, yeah, we'll send you the information. Just be ready to receive the be ready to receive the information. And so they're like stalling, and they I guess they know like what was it? They know like some secret code so that they can disable the Reliance ship.
Yeah, there's a secret code between different Starfleet ships to where if I think it's compromised, you are able to send this code and it lowers the shields. I think this is purely made up for the movie.
Yes.
Because I don't remember seeing this before. Maybe, but I think there's a very small chance of that. But yeah, they're basically just trying to hack into them so that they can get them to lower their shields so they can get maybe one good shot off. But
yeah,
it's kind of a gamble because, you know, I love in the background, Khan is just like, Kirk, like, I'm waiting. And Kirk is just like, would you shut up, dude? I'm going as fast as I can. Yeah, and he kind of, I love that William Shatner kind of overacts at one point where he's like, please, wait, we're trying so hard. And he just overacts and it eats the scenery and just like hams it up so much. And it's just like, that's what people
we need more time.
Exactly. That's what people assume William Shatner's acting always is. But when you watch him in these movies, his dialogue is very fluid. He doesn't always have those dramatic long pauses. It's because it's when he needs to pretend to be in danger that he does those. Please, we just need some time.
Yeah. For dramatic effect.
Exactly, for dramatic effect. It's kind of meta in a way.
It is, yeah. It is, yeah. So they're able to lower their shields. They fire on him. Pew, pew, pew.
Direct hit.
And yeah, and they hit him. And they're able to slightly disable the Reliant, not as much as the Enterprise is, but they can't continue to engage in this fight. And so the Khan is pissed off, but the Enterprise is more disabled, so they're going to go and do something else while the Enterprise is just stuck. They have other plans. And so Khan is mad, but he still has the upper hand. So he's like, kind of keeps going. And so a bunch of cadets get really fucked up. There's this one kid who we see at the beginning and he dies, which sucks
really horribly. Like, I remember, like, this is a crew full of greenhorns. They have never seen any kind of action before, ever. And it's really sad when you really think about it, that these are all just like fresh-faced, thought they were just going on a training mission kids, and engineering gets totally messed up. Poor Scotty. I hate seeing James Doohan look sad. It's so sad.
Yeah, he's really. He said he never left his post, sir.
It's really sad.
They did not sign up for this.
No, right? They didn't. Well, it kind of goes back again to like that whole like Starfleet officers are explorers. They're not soldiers, but a lot of time they're used as like they end up in these situations that put them in massive amounts of danger, and loss of life is extreme. And the way that death is handled in this movie is way more appropriate than it is handled in the first movie. Like, Kirk is actually like genuinely upset. He's not just like, oh, he died in a transporter accident. Can you let his family know? I gotta go. I got a thing, and I really have to go. But no, he stays with Scotty. He stays with McCoy, and he like holds this kid's hand, while he dies. And it's like, wow, that's actually way more human than he was in the first movie.
Yeah, because they have a moment when Kirk, he's probably a fan of Kirk. This kid was before he got.
Everyone knows who he is.
Away. And so it, but that's when you're the captain of the ship, when you're head of the helm, you got to make decisions that get people blown up and fried.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, who's going to stop this psycho from taking over the world, doing whatever he wants to do? So the Enterprise is still disabled, and they're able to like repair some stuff and move, but they're moving at a very slow pace. And they approach Regular One, which is like the little orbiting space station. So they don't get any response, so they beam aboard. And there's some stuff about like, we can't beam back for 2 days, blah blah blah, and all this stuff, which later becomes kind of a red herring. And so they get there, and so then they see Chekhov and Terrell or whatever, right? And so they kind of those two kind of like come along with them. And they're like, oh, they're like shoved into something or something like that.
They're probably shoved into a closet or something.
Yeah, they got shoved into a closet. Which is really funny.
Just put him in there. Chekhov's small enough. You can sit on his lap. Just
just stick Chekhov in there. So then there's this other, what is it? It's like a moon or something, right? There's this
moon. It's like a moon or some kind of lifeless rock that's just like hanging out in space. Yeah,
there's some rock where there was another phase of the Genesis project was being held at, and so they beam over to there, the four of them, or however many of them, I forget how many people there are at this point, and then they find the rest of the crew, and so they're like, oh hey, you guys are there, but then, you know, David's not very happy to see Kirk, and so they get into a fight.
Well, I mean, at this point, too, David still thinks this is all Kirk's fault. Like, he has no evidence to support that Kirk did not send any of these people to go and get the Genesis data. So he's pretty pissed.
He's pissed
off.
And
it's also this is something Kirk would do.
Yeah. So they get into a little fight, and Kirk wins. And then Carol's like, "What the hell's going on? You guys need to stop fighting." But then we get the big thing about this whole situation, which is that Chekhov and Terrell are like they're still brainwashed, and they're being controlled by Khan, and Khan is like, "Oh, you fell into my trap," and now I know. I got what I wanted. I got the information about Genesis, and I know basically there's like I guess you call it a Genesis bomb, or the Genesis weapon, or the Genesis, like, whatever you want to call it. This thing will transform a planet. And he wants to have control of it so that he can, I don't know, get revenge or something. Do something bad with it. And so there's this whole situation. Basically, Khan tells them, okay, now kill Kirk. Terrell can't do it. And so then he kills one guy, kills one scientist. And he kills himself.
Yeah, he's like, it's just going to be easier this way, which is really, it's just so horrible too.
Yeah,
like,
it sucks.
Because the thing is eventually, the thing that's in their brain, that's attached to like their brain, whatever part of the brain that's controlling them, is actually going to continue to grow and eventually eat your brain, I'm assuming. It's like its first meal. So that they've gotten to that gestation period where he can still be controlled, but the bug inside him is going to literally just eat its way out of his head, which is horrifying.
Yeah, it's really bad. But he's not able to kill Kirk, and then this whole thing was like very kind of, I don't know, very convenient. Let's kill this one guy, but the guy that we care about, let's have the bug crawl out of his ear, and then we'll shoot it and kill it, and then
we'll just have it ooze out. That fake ear with like the fake hair, and it just like the blood. Yeah, it's very. Who did you say? David Cronenberg?
Cronenberg, yeah.
Yeah, it's very, which is interesting that it's Cronenberg.
Yeah.
Just like the oozing and just kind of slithering
gross.
Out. It's just
fucking
Yeah. It's nasty. If
and
there's
so
a fly in my room, I can't sleep. I have to kill the fly before I go to bed. I'm just like, I can't sleep with an active flying bug that could crawl inside me.
You know, I swear to God. So like this happens like, I don't know, every like once a year. I'm asleep and there's a fly in my room, and it'll always try to fly in my ear. I swear to God. I swear to God. It happened to me like 3 days ago. I'm asleep and I'm like, I'm under the covers. And then it flies right past my ear. I'm like, what the fuck?
No,
and so then
I can't.
And it's at night, and I can't see anything. So I'm just like, okay, fuck it. I'm just gonna like put this cover over my head and go to sleep. That way, like that happened to me like 3 days ago.
Oh my God,
it's torturous.
Yeah, that's horrible.
Bugs at night suck. They absolutely suck. But then we get like one of the best parts of this movie, right? So Khan beams up the Genesis technology, basically the Genesis bomb, and they're stuck there. As far as Khan knows, they're going to be stuck there for a while. for forever, for as long as And then he has this great line. It's like, I will leave you as you left me, marooned on a dead planet, buried alive.
Buried alive, yeah. Kirk is actually one of my... What's so great about this movie also is that Khan and Kirk never share the same soundstage. They never share the same, like, scene together. They're talking to each other, but they still have, like, amazing chemistry, which is so weird. And I love when Khan thinks that Terrell might have killed Kirk. And Kirk is just like, wow, Khan, like a poor marksman, you keep missing the target. And he tries to like goad him. He tries to get him to come down and fight him. But
he goads him, many times.
Yeah. You're going to have to come down here and kill me if you really want me dead. And Khan's just like, do I?
No.
Actually, I don't. I'm going to stay up here where it's nice.
Yeah, I'll leave you as you left me. I think I prefer that. Poetic.
Yeah, I think I'll just leave you there, actually.
And then we get the super iconic Khan!
Yeah, which is so much better than J.J. Abrams. Sorry. I'm sorry, Quinto. That was weak as fuck.
Well, look, I mean...
Dog. It was just like a fart in the wind.
There's fan service, right? And
then there's fan service, and then there's just giving them the whole fucking pie. It's just like, no. It's just, there's fan service, and then there's just screwing up the recipe. Like Kirk is pissed in that moment. When we can say William Shatner was a better actor screaming one word than Zachary Quinto, there might be something wrong. And I love Zachary Quinto. Yeah. I do. I love that man so much. I think he's a wonderful actor. Duggu. Ellie, do you like Khan? Do you think Carol Marcus in the Prime Universe is a better Carol Marcus than the Kelvin timeline? Yes.
Well, to be fair, like the Carol Marcus in the Kelvin timeline, she get to see her in her underwear.
Did we need to?
No, we did not.
Everything in that movie was fan service. Carol Marcus's boobs. Okay. Okay, would you just relax? She's going under now.
Yeah.
This freaking dog. Yeah, it's just like the scene is. This movie is just better. It's just better. We didn't need a facelift.
The problem with like certain types of fan service is like when you know what's gonna happen, and it's not anything new, it kind of loses. Yeah. It loses any kind of real feeling that you're gonna have from it. It's
because I was watching the movie and I just saw it coming. Like Kirk dies, and then what else is he gonna say? No. Like, yeah, okay, this isn't Star Wars. Like he's gonna say the line, guy. He's gonna say it, and then he says it. And it's just like, wow, that was like the weakest. It was just so weak. It was just so.
It's also a little ridiculous that they brought him back like immediately. Immediately.
Yeah, because I don't think Khan's blood was ever, even in Space Seed or even in Wrath of Khan. I don't think they ever mentioned that his eugenics superhuman blood could do anything.
No, remarkable. I mean they just made that shit up, right?
Yeah,
like
he always had super strength. He always had hyper intelligence. He always was very tactical and very very smart. But he doesn't have super blood. Like, it just makes no sense.
Yeah, it was just a plot contrivance. Well, anyway, but we'll get to that way down the line when we talk about Into Darkness.
I know, I keep jumping ahead because I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I mean, it's like I said, I can't wait. It's gonna be very fun to talk about that.
I think part of it is it's like a domino effect. One affects the other. You know what I mean? And I think that's probably why it's so easy to keep circling back to those movies, with the exception of probably Beyond. It's just easy to do that.
Yeah, Beyond is more of a like old school Star Trek movie.
Yeah, and I do really enjoy Beyond.
Yeah, it's very. It really felt like a return. Yeah, to what the movies were trying to be about. Before they got.
And I think it's good when people want to expand on something and try and like offer some new originality to it, which is why I think Beyond works so well. they realize, hey, the formula actually works and we can create an original story while relying on original characters to be compelling. There's nothing original about Wrath of Khan. That's the unfortunate thing.
Yeah. Okay, so then we kind of get this revelation, right, that David is Kirk's son. And how old is this guy? Like, because he's already a doctor, right? Like,
yeah, but remember, in the 23rd century, like, I think that's always been kind of implied that human beings have, because we're learning we don't have the selfish motivations that maybe we have now in the 21st century, that we're more motivated to better ourselves. So maybe at an earlier age, we're more exposed to, everyone has the same opportunities. No one is lesser or greater than the other. So yeah, he's really young, but I think it's more that in the future we have greater opportunities for everyone to excel faster. So yeah, he's pretty young, but
yeah,
his mom is also a renowned scientist too, so he's probably already got a foot in the door.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he followed in her footsteps.
Oh, absolutely.
And they work together on this project, which is nice. That seems kind of nice. Yeah, and so then he's like, oh, why didn't you tell me? It's like, oh, well, you had your world and I had mine. I wanted him in my world, blah blah blah. And it's just like, well, that's sucks for me, for Kirk. That sucks for him. He's kind of denied.
Yeah, but what was he gonna do? Jump on a starship with a kid? No, like he's.
Yeah.
I think he's upset that she didn't tell him.
Yeah.
But I think he's gotten to the age where he's reflecting a lot on what he didn't do. And I don't necessarily think there's regret that he didn't marry her or something. I think there's more regret he just doesn't know his son. Like, which kind of sucks, but I love that they have this very adult conversation without screaming at each other, without insults being thrown around. They're very honest. Like, Carol's like, yeah, I didn't want him on a starship. I wanted him here, grounded in reality and not off on adventures. Like,
yeah, because that would be the other way for him to go, right? He'd be he'd be in line to be a captain of a ship somewhere, or be with
probably
Kirk
you're
on the
Admiral
Enterprise.
Kirk's son. You're gonna have so many doors open for you. Like,
totally.
It's just a given.
Totally, yeah. He would not have been a scientist, so.
No. And I like the part in this scene where Kirk says to Carol, like, she asks him how he feels, and he's just like shit, honestly. But he's basically like, you show me a son who I've never met before, who wants to help, who would probably gladly help the guy who wants to kill me. Like, I'm feeling pretty shitty right now.
Yeah. So then to kind of turn their frown upside down, they go inside this moon or whatever this thing is, and the inside has been turned into a sustainable biosphere with the Genesis technology. It's really cool. This is a really cool scene.
Can I cook or can I cook? I love that. Love Carol Marcus.
Yeah, I know. If only we could have seen her boobs in this book.
Yeah, if only we could have seen her boobs in this. But that's what Carol Marcus was missing, guys. Not her brilliance of creating life from lifelessness, not her awesome, skills as a scientist. No, we needed her boobs.
So, Lily, I have this brilliant idea. So what if Carol Marcus was like the opposite, and she wanted to create weapons?
What if Carol Marcus wanted to be a creator of destruction instead of life?
Oh, and by the way, so let's make her dad an admiral. Like, that totally makes sense, right?
I love it because it makes so much sense. Admiral Marcus sounds so cool, and then that connects Kirk with Admiral Marcus, and that connects. Blah, blah, blah. I'm a fucking idiot.
And then let's have a cool space fight where they fight each other in warp.
Yeah, like, JJ, can we actually get some input? I don't know. Show her boobs. I'm working on Star Wars storyboards. Fuck you guys.
They just hired me to do The Force Awakens, so I'm...
Just show her boobs, I don't care. Oh, you know what? We'll film a scene with Benedict Cumberbatch being half naked, looking angry in a shower.
Yeah, in a shower.
And then we'll tell them we had to choose between the two scenes. That'll make people feel better.
Oh my god.
It's like,
That's
it's not like
really
Benedict
what they
Cumberbatch
did,
isn't
though.
bursting out of that shirt already with his giant muscles or anything. No, we have to have boobs. We need boobs. We need her younger, hotter, sexier, and destructive.
I really like. There's so many things that I really can't wait to talk about when we talk about Into Darkness, because it's like, because I never thought about like, do they ever like how in this Kelvin timeline does it seem like there's any way they would have a relationship? Like when we watch that movie, do we believe that they're gonna have a kid together?
Absolutely
at some
not.
Point? Absolutely not.
It's
right?
Gonna be a tap it and leave it. It's gonna be a one and done.
Absolutely not.
And
the other thing too is like, wouldn't that then David he'd be in line to be like Kirk, right? Because if Carol Marcus in that timeline is a military person instead of basically doing weapons and stuff, instead of as she is here where she's like a scientist.
I don't know. He'll probably just be handed everything like Kelvin Kirk. He'll probably just be handed everything. They'll just give him the captain's chair without actually doing anything to earn it whatsoever. No, I don't believe for even a second they would have ever have been able to fall in love with one another. At least with Carol, Prime Carol and Prime Kirk, I see like it was probably just like a summer romance. They probably met and were like, yeah, we're super into each other, spending a lot of time together. And they just went in different directions. Like I can at least see them spending time together, going on dates, having fun. You know what I mean? I can't picture Kelvin, Kirk, and Carol having fun.
The Kelvin Kirk,
he isn't fun.
Yeah,
he's so destructive.
Yeah, he's the Kelvin Kirk. I mean, I really like Chris, but I really like the casting of the Kelvin.
The casting is great.
People. I really like them, and I think I mean it's so unfortunate that like I feel like there was like always some bad shit happening. You know what I'm saying? Like Anton Yelchin dying, and and then
that was so horrible.
Yeah, there was it just felt kind of cursed. And it's like, man, what are they gonna do? So it kind of makes it a little bit harder to go forward with it. But yeah, I mean the Kelvin Kirk. Oh my god, this guy.
Yeah, I can't picture him being able to love anything except himself. And at least Kirk was aware of his vanity sometimes, and he had people who were supposed to bring him back down to earth. Kelvin, Spock, and McCoy just enable him. Like I feel like they're just enablers.
It's like a weird space cult, and Kirk is like the, everyone enables him. Even Prime Spock kind of enables him too a little bit.
It's like if I was Prime Spock, I would take one look at that kid and be like, yeah, you're terrible. You're awful.
Yeah. Like you're not the captain of the Enterprise.
I'm not Spock. Oh, I'm just a maroon Vulcan. I don't know you. Yeah. Oh my god. Can you help me get out of here? Makes me so mad. With that being said, I do love Leonard Nimoy's presence in the Kelvin timeline. I do love him there because I just love Spock so much. So I'll take it. I'll just take it.
Yeah, and it sucks that that was another thing because he was kind of a big part of at least the first movie, and then the second movie, and then he dies, and then they talk about him dying in the third movie. Yeah, it's just I don't know. It's just sad stuff. Sad, and then you see that Kirk the way, and it gets even sadder.
I like Star Trek Beyond Kirk because at least he's finally just humbling himself a little bit. He's finally just being a humble person and realizing, oh, the sun doesn't rise and set on my ass. And I like that he's just like, the movie talks about how he's the age his father was when his father died. Like, because that's a very existential thing to go into, especially given the circumstances of his dad's death, the circumstances of Kirk's birth. All of that, at least in the Kelvin timeline. So I like all of that stuff. I like that McCoy, this is so random, I like that McCoy says, are you going to call your mom today? I just like that. Like, yeah, oh, he has a mom, Winona, who lives on Earth. Like, that's she still exists. Like, she's still a person. Even though she was, they didn't. I feel like they could have done more with Winona Kirk, honestly, but whatever. I just like that. It's a little more. Don't forget to call your mom. Like, Kirk would call his mom, for fuck's sake. I don't know. I like that movie a lot because they actually just humbled him. Like, stopped made him being such a twerp. And it's sad we only got one movie of that.
Yeah, I know. We'll see if they give us another one, but we'll see. Okay, so yeah, so then we finally kind of get some more stuff about the Kobayashi Maru, and it's like, oh yeah, so Kirk was the only person to ever pass the test. This is another thing that brings up Star Trek 09. And so then there's a story like, oh yeah, I reprogrammed the simulation to make it possible to rescue the ship, and they gave me accommodation for thinking outside the box. And he's like, I don't believe. So Kirk's like, I don't believe in a no-win scenario. I don't like to lose. And then he's like, he's like eating an apple, and then they do the exact same thing in Star Trek 09.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
And he gets punished for it, which honestly I think is, I don't know if he would have gotten a commendation for originality or thinking outside the box for that. Maybe in the Prime timeline, sure. I think it makes a little bit more sense that he would have gotten in trouble, honestly, to rig the test. But Prime Spock still did it. I mean, Prime Kirk still did it first. It's just, I think it would have made more sense for Kirk if we're doing like an opposites day. It would have made more sense for him to try and fail, and to learn something maybe, but no.
Yeah, Kelvin Kirk doesn't really need to learn anything. He just needs to be gifted things. I mean, that's kind of the problem when you have to reboot a franchise and make everyone like 29 years old. It's like, how can you justify someone who's like that young being captain of the ship? Well, you got to do all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you got to do all kinds of crazy stuff. I feel like he still could have been captain at a young age, but we don't see him work for it. We don't know. He doesn't do anything. He doesn't do anything to earn it.
Okay, so our Kirk, our Prime Kirk, he so they're back on the ship, and their ship was able to. There's this whole thing about like, oh well, we weren't gonna really tell whoever that we could beam us back to the Enterprise really quickly because they were going to listen in. Some kind of a thing, some kind of plot contrivance. Anyway, they're back on the Enterprise, and they're able to like kind of maneuver, and they're going to go into this nebula, and Kirk goads Khan into following him. And so when they're in the nebula, the conditions compromise their shields and targeting systems. So it's an even match between the two ships. So it's kind of like it's a easier playing field for them. And so then they get into this nebula, and like Khan's really pissed off, and he's like, oh, I got to kill this guy. And Spock has this thing about he has 2-dimensional thinking or something like that, or he's not able to think 3-dimensionally. And so then Kirk is like, kind of exploits that. He's like, oh, okay, like just stop the ship and wait, because that means he's going to try and do something to follow us, and so then he's just going to appear. So then the Reliant like is like kind of comes up in front of them, and they like fire on it, and a bunch of people get killed, basically a bunch of people on the ship except for Khan. Khan's the only one alive, and it's some kind of gruesome stuff. We see like we see like this massive pillar fall on a guy.
Yes. It's like that styrofoam pillar just came down hard.
Yeah, and that's, I don't know, that was kind of a fun scene, because like Khan really cares about these people.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. Like especially in Space Seed and in this film, these are his family. Like they expand on that a little bit more into Darkness. Khan's like willingness to do whatever it takes to save his family is because these are literally the only people who are like him. These are the only people who are like-minded like him, who have the same goals, who are driven the same way, and who are literally engineered the same as him. Nobody else could understand him the way that they can. So even though he gets really invested in killing Kirk and thereby, makes himself vulnerable, he's still like pretty upset that like he just got his whole family. He is the last one. Like that's it. Well, we won't talk about Enterprise, but he's basically the last one.
Yeah, he's it, and then everyone's dead. Yeah, I like how he was able to just like easily lift the thing up and like throw it, but his friend was dead. It's too late. And also, like, his friend was like, "Hey, dude, we should just leave."
Yeah, I know. He was trying to get him to leave. Like, we have a ship. We can go anywhere we want.
Yeah, let's get the hell out of here.
Like, no, but the whole Moby Dick thing comes back again.
Yeah, I've got to get that white whale. I got to kill him. So everyone's dead, and Khan's really mad, so he arms the Genesis machine.
Not good.
Not good at all. So now they got to get the hell out of there because it's going to transform the nebula into something else and destroy everything else in its path. So they're trying to get out of there, the Enterprise, but the warp drive is damaged from being shot at earlier, and it's leaking. It's leaking like nuclear radiation. Yeah. So Spock decides to go on down to the engineering room, and everyone's kind of really hectic,
losing their shit.
Yeah, they're losing their shit. They're like, I don't know what to do.
I'm giving her all she's got, Captain.
Yes, exactly.
I love Scotty.
Yeah, but she can't take anymore. So Spock is like, well, someone's got to fix it, basically. And I think there was someone who's telling, oh, you can't do that. And then he fucking nerve pinches the guy and then gets on
McCoy.
Inside. Yeah, McCoy. Yeah.
McCoy. I'm sorry, I don't have time to explain this, Doctor. I just love that.
So I
don't have time to this.
Remember. And then he mind melds with him. So, yeah, Spock goes into the room and he closes the door behind him, and that's it for him. He's basically dead, but he's sacrificing himself to fix the warp core, and he's able to do it. And they're able to get into warp and like get out of the nebula before it explodes and transforms into a new planet. And Kirk's like, yeah, they did it. Scotty did it. And then Scott's like, oh, you should come down here right away. And then it's like, oh shit, what happened?
And then I love that shot where he looks over at Spock's station and it's empty. Oh my god. Yeah. And he just knows. Oh shit. God, I love that. It's it's like just whips around and he's just like, oh fuck.
Yeah. Ugh. Yeah, this is like really impactful, this whole scene. He goes down there and then he sees that Spock is in the room and he's like immediately tries to kind of get him out, and they're like, no, you can't, Captain. He's dead already.
You'll flood the whole oh my god, when Scotty says that, it's just like it sounds like such a cold like thing to say because they've all served with Spock. They all love Spock. They all like they care about him. He's one of their friends, and he has to like get it into Kirk's head. Yeah, he's already dead. Like he's dead already. Oh, gets you.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great scene. This whole thing is like amazing. And what's great too is like so Spock's in this room and he's fucked up, and they have this like basically last time they're gonna talk, and Spock like he kind of like straightens himself out. He like makes his uniform really straight. I don't know, that's really kind of, I don't know, there's something about that. Like he's dying, but he's like, I'm gonna be dignified the way that I die. in front of my friend and my captain. And, he comes over to Kirk. He's like, "Don't grieve, Admiral. It was logical. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, or the one." And so I had to die. And he's like, "What do you think of my solution to the Kobayashi Maru test?"
And that's part of like Spock's charm, is that he's not, it's kind of endearing that he says that, because it's almost like a joke that under different circumstances Kirk probably would have laughed at. Like, "What do you think of my solution? It's better than yours. You cheated. I actually did it."
I faced death and I sacrificed myself. Yeah.
This is the solution, and it's very beautiful. And there's something like, when Spock is approaching the glass, he walks into it. So like he's blind. He's like blind. He can't see his friend, and it's like he's the one comforting Kirk. Like he's the one being like, because he's the emotional one. It's so good. And I just love that like Kirk is literally a man who always has something to say, and he's literally speechless. He can't. He doesn't know what to say. It's so.
Yeah.
And the first thing he asks him to is like, "Is the ship out of danger?"
Yeah. It's great. Yeah, it's really an emotional moment.
Yes,
and then he's like, I have always and I will always be your friend. Live long and prosper." And then he does the Vulcan signal, and he does it back, and then he dies. And then he dies, and that's it for Spock in this movie.
Yes, and we will get to it. But Star Trek Nemesis, hi, this is how you do a death scene. That's all I'm going to say about that shit.
Yeah. And so then they have a space burial for Spock.
The bagpipes. Ugh.
Yeah, the bagpipes.
Just like.
And pew, they shoot him off, and then he lands on the new planet. New planet's been created by Genesis. And then like Kirk has this last scene with his son. They have a chat, and he's like, "Oh, Dad, I'm really proud of you." And Kirk's like, "I haven't faced death. I've cheated death." But they have a heart to heart, and then they hug it out. And his son's David's like, "I'm proud of you, Daddy."
And like, "I'm proud to be your son." Like, what I like about also like the final conflict between Kirk and Khan, like the two ships, is David is on the bridge and he gets to observe his dad like in literal action. Like, he gets to see why Kirk is a really great captain, and he gets to see why like he's actually a really great humanitarian. And they kind of work together. Like, David can give him like some information about Genesis, like it can't be stopped, like once it starts going, like that's it, we got to get out of here. And he finally just gets to see who his dad is outside of knowing things about him that maybe Carol's told him, or maybe that he's just like heard on the news or something like that, because there is like a news organization within the Federation. But yeah, it's a nice moment, and it finally opens that door to like maybe not like a super thick bond, but communication at least has begun.
Yeah, and the last thing we see Spock's coffin on this planet, and then it's the end of the movie. I wonder if anything will happen with that.
I wonder. Well, funny thing about that is Leonard Nimoy wanted to kill off Spock. Like, he was fine with it. And then he regretted it and was like, maybe I could come back, figure something out.
Yeah. Well, they'll figure something out.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, so that was our review of Wrath of Khan. Very cool. Yeah, so is this your favorite Star Trek film?
Yeah, it's my favorite original series film. Number 5 comes very close. I know a lot of people don't number 5. I don't know why. I kind of know why. No, wait, is it 6? Shit. Fuck. Is it Undiscovered? Yes, Undiscovered Country is a close second in the original series film. There's so many. I apologize.
There are a lot, yeah.
And then probably number 4 would come in third.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I mean, I think, again, I haven't seen Search for Spock. Never seen it. No idea what happened. Never seen it. I have no idea what happens. So I'm gonna watch that movie and I'm gonna be like a wide-eyed, little boy. I mean, I know that he comes back, but I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's in the name. You gotta figure. I'm not just gonna search for his corpse.
Yeah, I've heard of a couple things, but honestly, I know that Spock comes back, and that's basically it. I don't know anything else about that movie.
This isn't a spoiler, it's just a character. Christopher Lloyd plays a Klingon, and it is phenomenal. And just the people they get to play Klingons is just great. It's just great.
That's exciting. Looking forward to that. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of like with the motion picture. No idea what I'm in for. No idea what I'm in for at all.
Yeah. Have you seen it? So you haven't seen Search for Spock, but have you seen anything like after? Like, have you seen like the one with the whales, which is A Voyage Home?
I believe I've seen the one with the whales. And I feel like that's it, maybe, for original series movies.
Yes.
So I'm very new to a lot of these movies, so it's kind of exciting to talk about these together. Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I was just gonna watch them as like the day before we reviewed them. I have watched all of them.
Yeah.
I have watched all of the original series movies. I could not stop myself. I just kept going. Poor Ryan. He's like, is this all just the same movie? I'm like, no, this is like number 6. And this is what's happening. Yeah. And we've already gone through all of this stuff. And he was just like, I'm going to go
Yeah, you're just like,
I'm all alone.
So are they all on like Paramount?
Yes, they are all on Paramount.
Oh, that's great. That's actually really great. See, that, again, that's why they want to have them all there, because like it made it easy for you to watch every movie.
That I have watched a lot of Star Trek in the last like week.
Yeah.
Since the last time we talked about the motion picture, that might have been actually 2 weeks ago. I don't fucking know. Time is.
Whatever. Yeah. What is time?
What is time but the fire in which we will all burn?
Yeah.
But yeah, I've watched all of the next gen movies, and now I just finished my Star Trek Picard rewatch. I'm just going ham. Like I'm just like eating all. But there's also some stuff that we talked about last week with the Romulan supernova that I wanted to like refresh my memory on about in regards to the Prime timeline.
Yeah.
And it did actually make a little bit more sense. I was wrong about a couple things, I believe. But I wanted to just refresh my memory on what was going on in the Prime timeline as far as that.
Yeah, the Romulan disaster. Yeah, that was confusing to me a bit too. Because in the Prime timeline, it probably like what's happened in the Prime timeline. Is it in like Picard, the TV show? Do they basically talk about like Spock tried to do the thing, but it didn't work?
No, Spock is not mentioned at all.
Okay.
So Spock is not even part of what's going on. Maybe they wanted to include it, but because Leonard Nimoy had passed away, I think it was just kind of like, let's not go there kind of a thing. Basically, the sun's going to go the sun's going to go supernova, or whatever was going to happen to the Romulan home planet, and basically Picard left the Enterprise to be in charge of the evacuation of Romulus and the world and the system world surrounding it, because it's not just Romulus that was going to get taken out by a supernova, which is not something that the Kelvin movies really touch on. It wasn't just Romulus that got destroyed, and his job was basically to, evacuate all the Romulans and these worlds. It was billions of people. It was a huge undertaking. And then the Mars Planitia shipyards were attacked, where all of these ships were being built. I don't know how much you want me to tell you about that, but basically it was really terrible. A lot of people died, and it basically put a stop to building these massive evacuation ships. Picard tries to convince the Federation, we need to help the Romulans, and they were like, nope, we're just going to let them die.
Yeah. Oh, no.
So they were able to evacuate a decent amount of Romulans, but they're kind of just scattered across different worlds. They have no home anymore, which does end up getting resolved in season 3 of Star Trek Discovery. You find out what happens. Because Discovery and Picard are kind of working, they're 900 years apart, but they're working
they're working together.
They're working together. You know, one picks up a little bit where the other one left off. But there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on in season 1 of Star Trek Picard.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
But that's basically what disgraced him, what made him leave the Federation and Starfleet, and he's still a citizen of the Federation, but that's why he left Starfleet and is kind of just living at his chateau in France.
So does that mean that? So did Spock try to use the red matter to fix the situation in the prime timeline?
I don't think so. They kind of retconned it a little bit. They kind of retconned it. Again, I think part of it was because Leonard Nimoy had died, but also I think they were just trying to include the supernova and the Romulan disaster without giving J.J. Abrams too much credit. I think they were just trying to get away from it, acknowledge it, but get away from it and see how it's impacting Picard.
I mean, at the same time, it does kind of make sense that if we have this kind of multiple multiverse theory, in a way, we could say that there was one timeline. What became of the Kelvin timeline, Spock tried to resolve it that way.
Yeah.
And in the prime timeline, Picard is the one who tries to resolve it with this evacuation that then also fails. So it's something that's going to happen. There's going to be a failure one way or the other. It's just, the way that Spock tried to do it created an alternate universe because of the technology that they had.
Yeah, and the way that Picard tries to go about it is, I think, a little bit more realistic. Trying to just do a planet-wide evacuation is very science fiction and very huge undertaking, but actually building the ships, getting people out of there, finding new homes for them, rehoming people, it's a little more grounded in reality than creating red matter, which I still love. I still think the red matter's cool because it's very science fiction. But yeah, it's pretty much just Picard and other people who want to help the Romulans. Well, help them without actually helping them, because Romulans don't have the best track record of being trustworthy. Yeah,
Romulans are kind of, I don't know. They serve a purpose, it seems, right? They do. To be an antagonistic force.
Yeah, so. And when they're good guys, that's still kind of hard to trust them, but it's not like they're not all bad Romulans. There are Romulans who want unification between and who want to be part of the Federation. It's just because it's so much modeled after the Roman Empire that there's constantly backstabbing and plots and coups d'etats and all this other stuff that's going on. You can never get to the point of unification because someone's always stabbing somebody else in the back, or it's also not popular to like the Federation. So if you do, you need to keep your mouth shut.
Yeah, and if you say that openly, you're getting stabbed in the back faster.
Oh, you could be tried as a traitor, have a kangaroo court, and just be put in like the dilithium mines, or sent to Remus, or all this other stuff. It's scary living in the Romulan Star Empire.
Yeah, exactly.
I wouldn't want to live there. No way.
Yeah.
But one thing that Picard actually does do, is actually expand on Romulan culture a little bit, which I did really enjoy, because you don't really learn too much about them except that they're antagonists.
Yeah. I feel like that's another thing in the sci-fi and fantasy, getting away from the I at least what I call it is like the orc trope, which is like, oh, these other things are just evil because they're evil and malevolent, so let's just kill them. But because that's really what it's about. It's like, we need a thing where we can it's okay to kill it. So let's just make them really bad and then kill them and not feel bad about it. It's like, well, would they always be bad? Is that realistic? I mean, if it feels good, I love watching Lord of the Rings and seeing these weird goblin things and the Uruk-hai and the orcs getting killed. Like, I don't care. But is that really realistic? Probably not. I mean, they're probably not all bad. I'm sure there would be one Urukai who's like, listen, dude, like I came out of a birthing pod somewhere, and then there was a fucking wizard, and the wizard told me that I needed to hate these people, and then I ran 50,000 miles to fight some people who were holed up in a thing. I don't want to be here. I want to go away.
Anybody else want to go home?
Yes.
Maybe I want to go home.
Exactly.
I'm gonna go to a cabin in the woods.
And then the even crazier part is like in the extended edition, so they lose that battle, and then they run into the Ent Forest and they get killed in the Ent Forest.
Yes, they get stomped to death.
They get stomped to death in the Ent Forest. So it's like there has to be some orc or urukai or goblin who has to be like, dude, I'm out. I'm out of this, man. I'm out.
Fuck this. Takes off his chainmail, just walks away. Yeah. Like, I'm gonna go piss off somewhere. You guys suck. Just cannon. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. They're just cannon fodder. They're not given choice. They're not going to be told, oh yeah, by the way, there's a different path you could take, but we really need you to kill this other wizard. Like, he's bad. He's just bad. Why? Don't ask questions. Just don't ask questions you don't want the answer to. Just go and kill these little hobbits. Eat them if you must. But and that's the thing. Like in the second movie, like the interactions with the Urukai and Merry and Pippin is they're not just drones. Like
they're not. No, they speak English.
They speak English or whatever human tongue is in Middle Earth, and they have personality. They know how to follow orders. They're evolving in some way, because in the first movie it's just that one Urukai who's just like a huge badass.
Oh my god!
Pretty much just a drone. He's just evil incarnate.
He doesn't talk at all. Yeah.
The Urukai in the second movie could possibly just piss off somewhere if he wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, they don't seem nice. I mean, I would not want to. They kind of like, to me, I think of him as like a mountain lion or something. It's a creature. It's out there somewhere. I don't ever want to run across it. But I'm gonna leave it alone. Yeah, as long as it leaves me alone and I don't go into its territory, I think we can coexist on this planet. But yeah, I just that's like one of the things that I think, because like you can still have antagonists that are complicated, I mean, they're definitely, I mean, just look at planet Earth. There's lots of different types of humans, and there's some places where people are more antagonistic, but they're still human. It's not like every person in North Korea or something is a bloodthirsty, crazy person trying to kill everyone. Most of them are just like they are born into a really, really bad situation. And if given the chance, they'd get the fuck out of there.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that for a lot of other species, it would be the same thing. But, it's easy to make it black and white. And like, oh, yeah, these...
Especially in the 60s when we just needed a faceless villain when the Romulans first appeared in Balance of Terror. They just needed an antagonistic. And then they needed that racial commentary with the fact that they look like Spock, but they're not the same. They're the same species, but they're a different culture entirely. Kirk has a great line where like one of the helmsmen is just like doesn't trust Spock now that he knows what a Romulan looks like, and he's being just terrible. And Kirk like grabs his chair and whips him around and like hovers over him, and it's just like, we have no place. Your bigotry has no place on this bridge, so you can go. And it's great. It is. Yeah. It's a great Kirk moment. It's a great Star Trek moment.
Yeah.
At least eventually, like especially with Unifications Part 1 and 2 and Star Trek Picard, and a bit of Star Trek Discovery, they expand a little bit more on the Romulan culture. They're not just always plotting something. There's civilians too who live on Romulus who are just trying to get by, and who might not want to constantly be at war with the Federation, and are just trying to make ends meet, doing what they can to keep their family safe.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, yeah, I think that covers all the Star Trek we got for today. So whenever we do our next episode, we're going to talk about the search for Spock. We'll see if we find him.
I don't know. Do they?
Maybe. Nah, I mean, they're probably gonna not find him, and he's gonna stay dead.
It's gonna be another red herring.
Yeah, exactly. It's another So I'm looking forward to that. Again, I've never seen the movie. I basically know some stuff, but I don't know really anything. And so fresh, gonna get a fresh perspective from me on that movie.
So I'm looking forward to knowing what you know and don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be fun. All right, well, peace out, everybody, and live long and prosper. May the force be with you.
Live long and prosper. Peace and long life.
Yeah.